Hello everybody, it's Lion from LionBricks.com. In today's video we're going to be taking a look at my latest LEGO MOC, which is this castle ruins. I was inspired to build this from a build that I saw online quite a while ago. It was just an image I found on Google Images, and I decided to create my own small MOC of a ruined building on some kind of rocky structure. I imagine this would just be a small portion of a much larger building, like in my case a castle, and the rock work could represent some kind of sort of mound or hill that this was built on around a moat, or it could just be the landscape that it's on. Let's start off by taking a look at those rocks, as I think they're fairly interesting. It was built on a standard scaffolding block on the very centre of the build, and it's got plates all the way around, and I used the snot building technique to fit on all of the rocks around it. I had to make things a little bit complicated for one of my own MOCs, and so what I decided to do was raise up some sections by a single stud, which is actually 2.5 plates tall. And so what I decided to do was use the technique that I used in one of my recent LEGO MOCs, where I place plates on top of tiles which are upside down and on top of studs, which raises it up by that extra half a plate and allows me to line it all up at the top. This allowed me to create lots of different heights and elevations within the MOC, which I think helps break it up and stops it from just looking like a simple MOC, and actually turns it into part of a landscape. Around the MOC I've got a couple of green pieces and a couple of studs in light bluish grey just to help break it up, but then on top, to help transition this into the rest of the ground and the rest of the building, I used a lot of dark tan plates. I used lots of little ones to make it look very rough, since this whole landscape is a very kind of rough looking landscape. You could definitely picture this as some kind of post-war build, or just a countryside kind of area. For the ground I decided not to use green, but instead use dark tan, since it helps the plants and the ivy on the walls, which are green, stand out a little bit more. Even though I wanted a very toned down colour theme for this build, it was looking very plain, so I decided to add in a couple of these red flowers, which use a couple of different flower designs that I like to use and I've used in the past. So let's take a look at the building itself. As you can imagine, there's no right or wrong way of doing this. It's pretty much a structure that I've built up, and I've used all kinds of different plates and modified plates, bricks and modified bricks, trying to add in as many rough bumps, scratches, cracks, textures, indents as possible anywhere I could, just to make it look like it's really eroding, it's really fallen apart, and it's maybe even taken a couple of hits in the past. It is definitely more intact towards the bottom, and towards the left I've actually got a section that resembles somewhat of a tower. This bit actually has a couple of windows in it, but towards the right I really like the arches that I've got along the bottom. I think this adds some really nice character, and I can imagine when this build was in its glory days it would have looked absolutely fantastic. To line the inside of the arches I used lots of 1x2 plates, which actually fit on there really nice and snug, and then I used a couple of modified bricks with pinholes to keep that design going all the way down. Throughout the MOC I wanted to make sure that it wasn't just this simple boring plain light bluish grey structure, so I added in a few dots of dark bluish grey as well, but then I also incorporated a lot of old light grey plates and generally just pieces, but I also used a couple of discoloured light bluish grey pieces, which I usually set aside since I don't want to use them. I've quite enjoyed using these recently, and I actually used them in my previous MOC just to add a little bit of texture to my fireplace. I think it's a really good way of getting another colour out of effectively the same palette of bricks that you would usually have, and with this build it makes it look dirty and very old, which I really like. In terms of the unique details to this build, other than the windows and arches, I've also got a couple of sloped and angle sections on the very top where it's really falling apart. This just uses a couple of slopes on their sides, and then I've balanced on sections of the wall on top at an angle. On the interior there's quite a few neat little details to take a look at. You can actually see where the floor originally would have been just above the arches, and there is an owl nesting up there as well, so I've got a couple of twigs that I imagine it would have brought in, and it's just looking down from above. If you look close enough, you'll also find a spider hiding in the tower section, and then I've also placed in a couple of planks of wood on the bottom, which I imagine would have just fallen down in the debris, and there's all kinds of other rocks and bits and bobs that have fallen in as well. One of my favourite features to this build was the destroyed corner towards the front. I just think it looks really cool. I love how you can see through it, but generally that pretty much makes up this MOC. As you can see, it's very detailed. It did take me a fair bit of time to make. However, once you break down the elements, it is really quite a simple build, and I think because it doesn't use loads of the same piece like a modular would, I think really a lot of people could build this themselves, since you could take all of your crazy jumbled up pieces that are in grey and just put it together and make one of these MOCs. With a nice base, I think it would come together really nicely. But yeah, that's my depiction on a castle ruin. Hope you guys enjoyed this video, and until next time, thanks for watching.